Hello everyone. So it's been some time since my last video, and in that video I told you guys that in the next video I would talk about my living situation and then some of the other technology used to harass those who are targets of this harassment. So the complex that I was living in filed their action for eviction in July of last year, and I filed a counterclaim for retaliation and non-compliance with the Fair Housing Act. Now, the judge that they assigned to my case entered a default judgment against me without hearing any of my motions or without a trial. And he did this for the purpose of making me homeless. So minorities in Florida in general, but specifically in Hillsborough County, are trafficked, and then like women minorities are trafficked into prostitution. So law enforcement, unfortunately, they are aware of these companies that are trafficking minorities, and they are refusing to do their jobs and investigate. And with the blacklisting, judicial officials like the one I just mentioned that was assigned to the eviction case and elected and appointed officials are fully aware of what's happening, and they are refusing to step in and do anything about it because they, for one, participate in the harassment, in the blacklisting, but they're also supporting, or rather these private companies are supporting them. So I've submitted complaints to Florida's Attorney General and then other elected officials, both federal and local, and I haven't received a response from any of them. So hopefully by making these videos, the public becomes aware of the trafficking of minorities in Hillsborough County, and then those officials will step in and do something about it. So the purpose of the traffickers cutting off my ability to earn an income and carrying out acts of violence against me is to force me to resort to prostitution and the other forms of trafficking, or the other fields of trafficking that they want me involved in. So with the technology that they use, or that they use against the victims while they're sleeping, this technology, it has the effect of the date rape drug. So with the date rape drug, the victim is unaware of what's happening to them, and that's the same thing that this technology does. So it puts the victim to sleep so that they are unaware of what's happening to them. So in the last video, I let you guys, or in either the last video or the video before last, I let you guys know that I had to install security cameras at the previous place that I lived at because of the acts of violence being carried out against me, and then the attempts to gaslight me and convince me that what I'm experiencing isn't real. So when I watched the day after I was sexually assaulted, I looked at the security cameras, and the security cameras showed two men from Metropolitan Ministries dropping off a box of groceries, and next to the stairs there's a set of like a bar of gates. It's like a gated bar. And so one of the men who dropped the box of groceries off made a sexually suggestive motion in between the bars of the gate. And so obviously gated bars represent being in prison. So he was making a reference to me being sexually assaulted and in some type of prison. So the shelters in Hillsborough County participate in the trafficking of minorities. So the minorities who they want trafficked are harassed to the point of dependency into these shelters, and then private companies sort of bid and then choose who they will buy. So with Metropolitan Ministries, after the complex filed the action for eviction against me, they asked me to come in for an assessment. And during the assessment, I let them know of the acts of violence carried out against me, and they responded via email letting me know that they couldn't protect me. So this is confirmation of their knowledge of what happens to victims while they're sleeping. So this is an organized effort in Hillsborough County to recruit women into prostitution and trafficking, minorities specifically into trafficking. So in my case, they're trying to make true the lies that they spoke about me. So I've never been involved in prostitution or in any attempts to overthrow the government, but they spread these lies in order to justify having control over me. So the tactics that I mentioned previously were also used at the shelter that I was living in. So that was Cove Behavioral Health, and it was formerly known as DACO. So those tactics that I previously mentioned, gaslighting, carrying out acts of violence against me, stealing my belongings, all of those things happened at this shelter. Now, just before Cove Behavioral Health let me know that they had availability, the Tampa Police Department banned me from all public transportation. Now, I mentioned to you guys the accident that I was involved in and how my car was totaled in that accident. So public transportation is my only reliable means of transportation, and them banning me from public transportation was a way of ensuring that I would not work, so that I would resort or turn to illegal means to earn income. So the organizers of the harassment continuously interfere with my ability to earn income or to get help with the situation because they want me in this position and dependent. So out of the hundreds of jobs that I've applied for, and these jobs have been both inside and outside of the legal field, I've only received job offers from companies that participate or continue the trafficking. So this past January, I received a job offer from a company by the name of IDIQ. This company supposedly provides credit and identity monitoring services, but when the callers were calling, it appeared that they were calling for something other than credit and identity monitoring services. So it appeared that some were calling for sexual services, some were calling to get a reaction, like specifically to, I don't want to say test the workers, but I would say to get a reaction from them. So some were calling for that purpose, and then it appeared that others were calling because they genuinely needed some type of help. So this is an example of a company that traffics people for different reasons, and one area of the company is a cover for the other areas. So this is supposedly a company that offers credit and identity monitoring services, but they sent out an announcement via email stating that its other family of companies, Credit Swag and Countrywide Prepaid Legal Services, that as a joint venture, they would be creating a new employee handbook. So with prepaid legal services, you pay a monthly or a yearly fee, and then you have access to a group of lawyers in the event that you have a legal issue that arises or you need legal advice. So you guys know that I graduated law school in May of 2021, and that I passed the academic portion of the Florida bar, but that their character and fitness investigation was still ongoing. So it's not a coincidence that this company is the only company in the last year and a half that has offered me employment. It's confirmation of the trafficking and the recruitment of lawyers, unlicensed lawyers, or people who they want in the legal field or from the legal field to be trafficked into their particular place of employment. So the technology that I mentioned earlier was also being used at this company. So in addition to being able to put the victims to sleep, the harassers are also able to communicate with the victim in a way that's not audible to others, and then also to control the mind and body of the person that's being targeted. Now, to those who are unfamiliar with this technology, that sounds like strange, like unbelievable, but it is the case, and this technology has been developed to the point where the harassers are able to communicate with the victim without other people being aware of what's being said. So when the victim talks about their experiences or what's happening to them, it appears that they're crazy, and that's what the traffickers and those who are organizing the harassment rely on in order to justify and continue the harassment. So when I first started experiencing the harassment in 2014, I read that this technology that they've developed allows them to communicate with the victims or with the people that are being targeted by allowing them to read brain patterns and to communicate specifically with the person that they're targeting. But I didn't believe it. And again, this is something that the traffickers or those organizing the harassment rely on in order to justify and continue the harassment, so other people not believing the person that's being targeted. So I didn't believe it until I actually experienced it, and that was in 2019. So most of the harassment that I experience is in the form of mental abuse. So there's the voice of one or multiple people cursing at me, and this happens all day. And then at times there is the voice of people responding back as if defending me. And this is something that causes exhaustion, to constantly hear people cursing at you and then arguing back and forth. So again, this is something that it sounds unbelievable to those who are not familiar with this technology, but it is the case, and I experience it on a daily basis. So the purpose of the organizers of the harassment communicating with the victim in this manner is to make them appear that they are delusional, so that the harassers appear that they are justified in exercising control over the victim. So for example, they'll say something that's funny, or they'll produce an image that's funny so that it appears that the victim is laughing for no reason, but the reality is that those who are operating this technology have caused this reaction using the technology. So the organizers of the harassment also use this technology to communicate messages to others who are around the target or who are watching the target. So for instance, they'll raise my middle finger, or they'll turn my head, or they'll move some other body part in an effort to communicate a message to those who are watching the person being targeted. So again, I became aware of this technology, or I started experiencing this technology in 2019. I first read about it in 2014 when all of the harassment initially started happening. But I actually started experiencing it in 2019. And I'm mostly attacked or distracted when I'm reading my Bible or praying. So the organizers of the harassment, they'll redirect my thoughts, or they'll produce an image or something that takes my attention away from what I'm reading or studying. So because this technology allows the organizers of the harassment to have access to the victim's mind, they know that the lies that they are spreading are not true and were never true, but they use this technology for their financial gain and for their benefit. So they allow companies and individuals access to this technology to use it on minorities, and then because they profit from the use of this technology, they allow it to continue the harassment of the victims. So I'm going to continue to make these videos because what the traffickers rely on is the victim's silence, and then corrupt government officials and law enforcement who refuse to step in and do their jobs. So I'm going to continue to make these videos, and hopefully those law enforcement officers and those who have been tasked with oversight will step in and do what they're supposed to do.